Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this RSO workshop. We're going to talk today about best practices for virtual RSO operations. And so we're going to go over quite a few things. We're going to talk about where UNLV is at right now in this fall semester with, distance learning and not being together physically. So we're going to talk about what's happening right now. But we're also going to talk about tools and things that you can use for your RSO to operate in a virtual world right now, but also as we head into future semesters. We don't know yet what's going to happen spring semester, but we want to make sure that you as RSO leaders have the tools you need to continue to be successful in a virtual world should this continue past the semester we're in right now. So let's move on to introductions. Again, my name is Savannah Baltera, and I'm the Director of Student Involvement and Activities, and I use the pronouns she, her, and hers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marnie Dow. I am the Assistant Director for Student Involvement, and I also use the pronouns she, her, and hers.
So where I want to start today is just to affirm how important registered student organizations are to the student experience, both for the student leaders who are leading student organizations, but also for your members. Research shows that involved students do better academically, you have higher GPAs, you graduate sooner, and in our time right now with social and physical distancing, it can be very isolating. So even though it is not easy for you as student organizations to function while apart, it's still important. So we want to help you remember that it's important, help ground, the mission and why you exist, and have you create togetherness, make those support networks, and still operate in this time. It's going to take creativity. It's going to have you have to think outside the box, but we know that you all can do it, and so we want to help you. But first, let's just talk about where we are at right now with UNLV and RSO operations. So we've been sending out emails, but I just want to go over a couple of key things. I also want to take a minute. There is a Q&A box that you can type questions in. So if you have questions as we go ahead and put them in the box. We may stop and do them in the middle, but if we aren't able to, we're going to definitely get to the questions at the end. So if you have questions, go ahead and type it in the Q&A box. So let's talk about meetings and events. So student involvement activities is strongly encouraging that all RSOs operate remotely. That includes on-campus things and off-campus things. We want to do our part as a community to try to curb the COVID-19 in Southern Nevada, and so it's going to take all of us to do that. So we don't want you to gather together unless it's absolutely necessary, and if it's necessary that you gather together, wear masks, stay 6 feet apart, limit that person-to-person exposure. For on-campus events, there is an event exemption request. So when you get this PowerPoint on the website afterwards, you can get to the link for this interim policy. So if you do believe your meeting or event absolutely has to be in person for whatever reason, you can email me, and I'm the first step in the process. After you and I talk, if I feel that your event must happen in person, then I will help you on to the next step in that process. This process is only for on-campus events. So we don't control, UNLV doesn't control what happens off campus, which is why we are strongly encouraging you not to gather off campus either. The other thing that I know is a huge part of the student organization experience is sometimes travel to conferences or camping or competitions that might be part of the student organization experience. Right now, we are discouraging any travel as part of RSO operations. UNLV is discouraging travel across the board for faculty, staff, students. So we are hoping that you can engage in those opportunities that you would normally travel for, that you can do that virtually. The other thing that I also know is a huge part of your experiences is service and volunteering. Right now, UNLV is recommending against in-person volunteering, and we are encouraging virtual opportunities. The Office of Service Learning and Leadership has compiled ways that you can virtually volunteer. So if you aren't connected with them on their Instagram or on their website, you should be, so that you can figure out some of those virtual volunteer opportunities. So that's not everything as far as current guidelines, but I just want to give those highlights. The full list of guidelines is on our website, on the Student Involvement and Activities website. So please take a look, and you can email Marnie and I if you have any questions at all about these guidelines.
Okay, sorry about that. Looking at our notes. That's the beauty of doing something online. Okay, so we want to put a preface on there. Just remember that it's unrealistic to think that your virtual operations are going to be exactly the same as what you do in person. That's not realistic, that's not practical. So really think about what you can do and have practical expectations. So for example, think about not every single meeting, event, thing that you've done in person in the past has to be replaced with a virtual option. So if you had 10 events last fall, that doesn't mean you have to have 10 virtual events this semester. Maybe just pare that down. Think about the things that are most useful to you. Think about quality over quantity, and maybe just have a handful of events that you do less frequently so that you can really focus your time. Because one of the things we want to remind you about is that Zoom fatigue is real. So I'm going to describe the image here for those who may not be able to see it. This is a drawing of a student probably sitting at their screen with their head against the table because it's just overwhelming. So the Zoom fatigue is real, whether you're using Zoom or WebEx or whatever the case may be. Everyone is sitting in front of their computer just like you are right now. And all day, every day, we're in meetings, we're in classes, we're in events, whatever the case may be. It's a lot. And for some people, that's great. And for other people, it's really overwhelming. So just think about realistic expectations of people's time. So if you're going to ask someone to give of their virtual time, whether to sit in a meeting or something, you want to make that useful time. You want to really make sure that we're respecting the time that they're giving and they're not just getting overwhelmed. Try to differentiate between what is required and highly recommended or encouraged for your members and what's just for fun. So think about, you know, this meeting, does everyone have to be at it? Would you like to have everyone at it? And be transparent with your members about what those expectations are. Because for some of them, if they've been in virtual class all day long, even as much as maybe they would like to attend this fun event, it's too much for the day. So just be open and honest with your members and think about what is realistic. And then, so the next one is, don't do this to your members. This is, again, another meme that I'm going to describe, give an image description. It's a kid getting really, you know, having a mean mug saying, I survived another meeting that could have been an email. We have all felt that way. And I think everyone on here can say that, like, yes, I've been in a meeting where I was like, that was a waste of my time. You could have sent me an email. I would have gotten it. Try not to do that to your members, again, because we want to really respect their virtual time. It's overwhelming, it's exhausting to be online and in a virtual world all day. For some people, I know Savannah and I, this is our difference, like for some people, they're introverts like me, so just as the same as being like on and in a room with people in person is a lot for me, and I get overwhelmed and exhausted from it. The same is true in a virtual world. Savannah is the most extroverted person I know. She loves being around other people. So for her, sometimes virtual operations are like a way to get that experience from home. But everyone's going to be a little different. So just make sure you're thinking about that and making your meetings and events meaningful and not making them feel like, oh gosh, I wasted my time. That could be really challenging. Okay, so let's talk about some best practices if you're going to host virtual meetings. So for sure, before you do your first one, do a test run. Set up a meeting or event. Make sure you invite a couple of your friends or family members or someone, some other officers in your organization, and test out all the everything you're going to do. Make sure your camera works and your audio works, which you probably already know from classes, but make sure you understand how to share content. Like right now we're sharing, I'm sharing this PowerPoint. I'll give you an example. I thought I had this all set and ready to go. I had the PowerPoint ready. I had it as a Google slide. I had it, the PDFs ready. And then when I did a test run last night with no one. I didn't even invite anyone. I just did it for myself. I just started a test meeting. And I went to upload it into WebEx, and it changed to the font somehow, and everything was off, and it looked terrible. And it would have been a disaster if I learned that when you all were watching. It just would not have gone well. So I had to make sure I had an opportunity to troubleshoot that before today. You want to make sure you're doing the same thing with your events. Remind people to stay muted when they're not speaking. Savannah is an excellent example right now. She's muted right now because she's not presenting and I am. You'll notice whenever, I mean, I'm sure you all have experienced this in class, but when everyone's got their audio being shared and they're not muted, and you can hear the dog barking in the background, or you can hear this going on, or you can hear them shuffling papers or phone calls, and it all just kind of creates noise. And so one, it helps people focus when there's only one person speaking and they can only hear the person who really needs attention. And also for accessibility reasons, for those who have hearing challenges, it really helps make sure that they can hear the person that needs to be heard. So that can be really helpful. We'll talk about accessibility in a second. If you have a lot of attendees, consider that having them turn off their video when not speaking. For some people, it really is just, it kind of depends on their internet. So we've all been in meetings where like there's 25 people in there, and then all of a sudden people start to cut in and out, and it's overwhelming. And so sometimes if people don't need to be on camera, a really good thing to do is kind of just mute your camera so you can save some bandwidth. Set some ground rules and discuss the technical logistics. So make sure everyone knows, like, okay, here's how we're going to run this virtual meeting, because virtual meetings are different than in-person meetings. So, for example, one thing that we do in our staff meeting is we kind of just type our name in the chat if we have something to say, so that we know if we're in a conversation, be like, okay, Savannah's turn next, and then it's Marty's turn, so we're not all talking on top of each other. So that can be really helpful. Are you going to take, like Savannah mentioned earlier, are you going to take questions mid-presentation? Are you going to take them at the end of the presentation? Just kind of figure out how it's going to run, and make sure you answer any questions about the logistics before you get started. Use the chat feature as a way to raise your hand, I mentioned that, and then have a digital agenda, and make sure you post the link in the chat feature. So you all notice that I posted, that I put in the chat feature a couple times the slides for today. Same thing, if you have an agenda for your meeting, make sure people have access to view that on their own, not just that you're displaying it on the screen, but that you are giving them like a Google Doc version of it or something like that, so they can kind of follow on their own. Everyone kind of takes in information differently. They might want to take notes on that agenda, whatever the case may be. So make sure you're giving them an opportunity. And if you're recording the meeting, just like I did at the start of this one, make sure everyone knows you're recording it, and be transparent and tell them why you're recording it, what you're going to use that recording for. Is it going to go on YouTube? Are we just using it for training purposes? How, particularly right now, it was not a huge concern of mine to get consent from everyone, because only Savannah and I are viewable in this setup. But if you're doing a meeting where all 20 of you are viewable, you're going to record that. Everyone deserves to know what you're going to do with that recording. So just think about that. I saw a question come in. I kind of can see the questions as I'm presenting, but the question was, what if members join in later and can't see the chats previously posted? That's a really good idea. Good question. So I always encourage you, particularly when it comes to agendas and, like, say, PowerPoint slides, put it in the chat at the beginning, and then give it 5 or 10 minutes and do it again. I'll even maybe ask Savannah to put in the chat one more time the slides link, just in case we had anyone come in the last few minutes. Because that does happen. If you go into a meeting that's already existing, you can't see the previous chat. So that was a really good question. I see there might be one more question, so I just want to look at that real quick. How can we ensure members' involvement and engagement? Of course, this time is full of uncertainty, but I'd like to engage members as much as we can. So we're going to kind of talk about that throughout this presentation. So if you still have follow-up questions, Liliana, I see. If you still have follow-up questions, make sure you ask them when we're done. Okay, so moving on, I do want to touch on accessibility a little bit, because for some people, the virtual world has been incredibly challenging in terms of the accessibility of taking in information. Remember that not everyone can fully see the screen, hear the presentation, whatever the case may be. Everyone has a different ability status, and we want to make sure we're never assuming we know the ability status of our members. Just because someone you can't see or notice their different ability doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Lots of people have hidden disabilities. Lots of people have different abilities. So we want to make sure that we're being as universally designed as possible. Universal design just means that you are creating an experience that everyone can enjoy and participate in, whether they have ability challenges or not. So one thing you want to do if you're reviewing a document, say you're looking at an agenda or something like that, like I said, don't rely solely on screen sharing, and make sure you're providing a link so that people can do that. You'll notice beforehand, or send them an email. Some people who have vision challenges use a program called a screen reader that takes the text that's on the screen and reads it out loud to them. That does not work with images. So if I just present an image, this PowerPoint is a perfect example. To fix that problem I had earlier, I had to create an image of each slide and remake a new slide. So if I just shared this slide, it would be useless. This presentation that I created for here, it would be useless to someone because a screen reader can't differentiate text on an image the same way it can on a PDF. So you always want to make sure that you're providing things in PDF form, whatever you can, especially if there's text on that screen. If it's a visual image, then you can describe that visual image like I did with our earlier memes and photos. You want to make sure you give an image description. But if you have text and you're sharing that, it's much better to save that as a PDF than it is as a JPEG or PNG. Also know everyone know if your PDF is accessible. Typically, if you can select the text in your PDF, then it can be read by a screen reader. If you can't select the text, then the screen reader is just going to see that as an image and not be able to help the individual who's using the screen reader. So just keep that in mind. Try to use slide templates with high contrast. So for today's presentation, even though there's some design to this, I made sure where the text exists, it is black on white. High contrast is much easier to read for people who have vision challenges or disabilities. So make sure that you're choosing a slide template. If you're doing one that's purple on a pink background, that can be incredibly hard for people to read, regardless of their ability status. So just think about the templates that you're choosing. If you're streaming a video, make sure you turn on the closed captioning, whether you think anyone needs it or not. You have no idea. Some people may not be able to turn their volume up very loud. Some people may need the closed captioning. Whatever the case is, if you're streaming a video, they can't click the closed caption button themselves. They're relying that you did it for them. So just assume that someone's going to need it and turn on the closed captions. If you're, so for services like if you're using Google Meet or Zoom or Skype or any of those, some of them do auto captioning. Some are better than others, but make sure some of them, there's a setting when you create the meeting or event that you have to enable, so make sure you're doing that. If you're hosting a really large event, like say you're doing a virtual conference that you're going to have a lot of people at, I would consider spending the money to do live captioning services. There's lots of, you can look on Google, there's lots of services that will do live captions of events. There is some cost associated with that. It really depends on the scope of your event, but it's something worth considering. And then in the bit.ly that I shared, you can click on that link for additional accessibility resources. I did some research and found an article that I thought would be helpful for others to find out some additional accessibility things. The other thing I want to touch on is whether or not you want to require video. So I'm sure a lot of you are sitting in virtual classes. For some people I know that their stance on whether video is required has sort of changed as they've been in more. But I really want to encourage you to maybe encourage video without requiring video of your members, unless there's a real reason to do it. There are so many reasons why someone would choose not to turn on their video. And asking why they don't have their video on can be incredibly intrusive. Maybe they don't have reliable internet access in their home, and so having the video on is challenging. Some may be using a call-in feature because they may either their internet isn't working or have access, so a lot of them provide a phone number you can call. So if they're using a phone, they won't have video. For some people, they just may not be in a location that they feel comfortable sharing. By sitting in someone's home, you're seeing what my home looks like. You're seeing what my living situation looks like. You're seeing something that's very deeply personal, and that we're not in a situation where that's necessarily by someone's choice, that they're choosing this virtual world. And their choice might be they'd rather be in person because they don't want you to see what home is like, who else is home. Maybe they have a younger sibling that's doing virtual school in the same room as them. You have no idea what else is going on in that house or home, or if they have a stable place, they might be streaming from a Starbucks parking lot. You just have no idea. But by putting that requirement on people, you're then pressuring them to either disclose information they may not be comfortable disclosing, or they may check out altogether because it's easier to just log off of a meeting they're not comfortable in. It can really trigger some anxiety for students. So we just really encourage you to kind of keep that in mind when you think about your virtual meetings and events. That doesn't mean you can't highly encourage it. There's lots of things that are harder to do without video, but just know if someone isn't turning their video on, asking them why it's not on isn't a very inclusive practice.
Awesome. So just one last slide about logistics before we get into some creative ideas. So I just wanted to go over what platforms are available to you all as UNLV students. So Google Meet is available for everyone because your Rebel mails, your unlv.nevada.edu emails are Gmail. So you can use Google Meet for anything that you need. WebEx, however, which is obviously what we're using for this and possibly what some of your classes are, that's only available to those with the staff email address, which is unlv.edu. And so while you can attend WebEx events, you can't create them unless you have that staff email. And there has been some confusion the past couple months about that. So we just want to make that clear. Of course, there is Zoom and Facebook Messenger and Discord and Skype. I just learned about Discord, so I want to talk about that really quick just in case I'm probably behind the times. But Discord is completely free, and it's kind of like a messenger app like GroupMe, but you can do it by topic. So you create hashtags so then folks can join in to the different topic conversations. GroupMe can get overwhelming, especially if you have 30 people on a GroupMe, and maybe not everyone needs to talk about the virtual retreat coming up. So in Discord, all 30 people can be on your Discord, but then you make a hashtag virtual exec retreat. So then only the folks who need to talk about that topic can then go to that part of the Discord. You can also do voice to text very easy, or just voice recordings. That also is done really easy in Discord, and again, it's free. Facebook Messenger, of course, is free. There's no time limit. You can have up to 50 people. So a lot of you RSOs have Facebook, so use those Facebook Messenger rooms. And then Skype is also free up to 50 people. So those are what's available to you at no cost for as a UNLV student. So switching gears, let's start thinking creatively and a little bit to the earlier question about how you can get your members involved and engaged in this virtual world, because it's just not the same. You know, you're not on a second floor room in the student union, you have a fancy table and you're enticing them with free food or giveaways, or you're out there. That just doesn't exist. And so we have to think differently, and it's not going to be the same, and that's okay. So one idea is when you're designing a virtual event, really focus on the goal, define what you're trying to accomplish at this event, and then design the event around those new goals. So, for example, let's use the involvement fair that Student Involvement Activities puts on. That is an in-person event. We set up those tables in the union on Pida Plaza down the Academic Mall students come up to tables, students get really close to talk. That's not really something that can be recreated virtually. And so what Marnie and SIA staff had to do was think about the goals. So the two goals for that event were to provide the opportunity for RSO leaders to market their organization and recruit new members, and then showcase RSOs and involvement opportunities to all the students on campus. Those are the goals of that event. Whether it's in person or virtual, those are the goals. So then what SIA staff did was designed the virtual format that we ended up with around those goals. So that's what you all need to do as leaders. You need to take those events that you would normally do in person and peel back all the layers and decide what the goal of the event is. Then decide how to make it interactive. And send that out to your members. Just be very upfront. Say, I know we usually have this trivia night in person, but we can't. But we still want to get to know each other. We still want to build community, so we're going to do it this way. So I think that's one idea of how to engage them. Like if you tell them why it's important they log on to Zoom, why they want to take the time, they might actually do that. But of course, you need to have backup if engagement is low, because we know that everyone might have the best intentions of logging onto the Zoom, but when you get to 7 p.m. on a Thursday night, that might be the last thing you want to do. So think about recording your event so that if somebody couldn't log on, they can watch it later. Like think about those things ahead of time so that all of your hard work doesn't go to waste. So hopefully someone will watch it later, even if they couldn't attend live. And then, of course, you want to measure if your event was successful. So ask for feedback. Those first couple of virtual events might be a little rocky, and that is okay. The first couple virtual workshops that Marnie and I did in spring, they were a little rocky. So none of us are good at this. We are getting better, so don't let the fear of not doing it well enough hold you back. So just try it and get feedback and then try again. The other thing is, I mean, I have to give everyone props because everyone has been thinking outside the box. Everyone's been flexible and trying to adapt. So I just want to, I know that you've all already been doing this, but continuing to encouraging you just to be willing to try new things. Virtual events aren't necessarily easier or harder than in person. They're just completely different. It's apples and oranges. They are just not the same thing. So you might have that favorite event. Premier UNLV is my favorite event. We sat in a room, a virtual room, and tried to decide, like, could we recreate Premier virtually? We decided that we couldn't. So then we had to just think, okay, if we're not going to do Premier UNLV, but the purpose of Premier is to build community and have people come together, what can the Campus Activities Board do instead of Premier to still do that? So you're going to have to lean on your members. Think about the skill set of the members that you have. Maybe you have a member who's really, really good at making social media videos that you can post on your story to get people engaged. And maybe you didn't even know that because in in-person world, you didn't have to rely so much on social media. So ask your members, ask what they're good at. They might surprise you what they already know how to do. And so then you can put that to use in your organization. And then the big thing is just give yourselves grace, be forgiving with yourselves, be forgiving with your members. We all have our best, intentions of having things be perfect, but that's probably not going to be the case, and that's okay. And I don't think anyone expects it to be. The other thing to focus on is social media. So we all had social media for our organizations, but maybe when we were in person, we took it for granted. We were outside of the student union, we were in Pride Plaza, we caught that walk by traffic. You have to put a little bit more effort into your social media. It's more than just a marketing tool and more than just a get them recruited tool. Like this is now how you engage. So some ideas, go live. So if you're doing a virtual trivia on a Zoom, have somebody be live on Instagram showing what's happening so that if somebody goes to your Instagram, they're like, oh, those people look like they're having fun. I'm going to join next time. Do polls, do Q&As on your social media. to get people to interact with you. This is a big one of ensuring your members stay engaged and want to be engaged. Highlight them. If they're comfortable having their photo, like have a selfie and put up an accomplishment that they did for your organization. Somebody's been volunteering virtually and they've put in 100 hours of virtual volunteer hours, but post that, like recognize them for the hard work they're doing. And then the other thing is, don't always try to program things live. So maybe you can do a scavenger hunt or trivia or a photo scavenger hunt that can be consumed on their own time, and have a mix, have some live things, but then also some things that they can do on their own, but to keep them engaged with your organization. So this list in the PDF that has been in the chat, this is a lot of really good information for you to go back to. So this is being recorded, so you can go back and watch this, but these different links for your organization, you can, when you have your meetings, you can go back and look at, so as you make your plan. We just want to make sure that you have them all in one place. And then my biggest plug is just our office, student involvement and activities. We are available virtually. We can set up meetings. We can set up phone calls. We want you all to be successful in our new world. And so reach out to us. So if you're really struggling and you need some of that like one-on-one help, like we are here for you. And so please reach out to us.
Yeah. So thanks, Savannah. So just in case you know how to reach out to us, our social media is @involvementunlv and our email is involvement@unlv.edu. Before I kind of give some closing final stuff, I want to make sure we give people an opportunity to put any questions in the chat. We kind of purposely designed this presentation to not last the full hour because we wanted to make sure there was time to address your questions. I think one of the things, so go ahead and put those in the Q&A and we'll get to those before we close out. But while we're waiting for people to add those in if they have them, the thing that I want to kind of mention, kind of just come back to is why is this important at all? It would be really easy for a lot of our student organizations to just be like, this is too hard, it's not worth it, we're just going to go dormant for a little while. But the experience of being part of a student organization is really important for students. A lot of our students, particularly right now, being in a virtual world is very isolating. It can be very lonely. And that connection to other people is more important now than it ever has been. You know, for example, I haven't left the house in multiple days, which for me, I don't actually mind, but for other people, like that's really challenging. So having others that you can rely on, that having that like scheduled interaction, having those things that are not just, you know, the things I have to do. I have to go to classes virtually. I have to do these other things. That engagement is so important. And I know it's hard. I know it's challenging, but I really, really think it's worth it for you all to have to kind of do a little more work and think creatively and think outside the box. So kind of just keep that in mind. I see we've got a couple questions coming in. So let's take, are there workshops available on campus to learn more about technology? I think that's a really great question. Savannah, I think OIT is offering some things, right?
Yeah, so I just went to the OIT website to check. There is a schedule up there for trainings. Obviously, I'm doing this on the fly, so I don't know like every program that they're training are, but they do exist. If there are, for that organization, for the person asking the question, after you look at the OIT website, if you don't see what you're looking for, go ahead and email the involvement, email what you're specifically looking for, so then with more time, Marnie and I can try to do some research for you if you're not able to find it on the OIT website. There was another question, does UNLV have the Google Suite plan? Yes, because the difference is the meeting times. There's no limit on the time, well, 300 hours. So your meeting can't be longer than 300 hours. So there is not the 1 hour time limit. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about that. UNLV has the larger suite.
Yeah, and what we have access to is changing a little bit come October 1st. So they had opened the full like paid suite to everyone, to all Google users. until September 30th, so it is going to kind of get a little limited, but we still do have, so, but there's no time limit, and Google Meet can still accommodate meetings up to 100 people, which is still quite a bit. For some of our organizations, I'm just going to tell you, for some orgs, they've just chosen that it's worth the price of a year of membership for Zoom, or 6 months of, it just is. It's not that expensive. I actually, Savannah, do you know the cost off the top of your head? I'm sure there are price tiers, but I don't remember what they are.
But the mid-level one is $14.99 a month, which gets you unlimited time, and I think it's probably 100 or 150 attendees. But that's the mid-level one. You can spend more and get like totally unlimited.
Yeah. So for some orgs, you know, for a lot of orgs, like if you had your budget for the year usually included like buying pizza for meetings and you know, doing some decorations for events. One of the nice things about virtual events is it costs a lot less in general, depending on your event, in general, because you're not buying food and you're not buying decorations for the space and you're not paying for a room reservation. Instead, you can try to free up some of that money you would use for other things, like maybe a paid membership for Zoom or the live captioning services if you're doing a really large meeting or conference. So really think about how, I mean, we all know that funds are limited and resources are limited, and for a lot of our orgs, fundraising this year is going to be way more challenging than it ever has been because a lot of people just don't have the disposable cash to help student orgs right now. But, you know, think creatively. Generally, virtual meetings end up costing less than in-person meetings unless you're paying for a lot of technology. So think about how you can kind of, you know, be a little savvy with your money, and then maybe it's just worth things that people before were like, there's free stuff, I don't need to pay for that. Zoom or WebEx style memberships and a Canva membership. We use Canva all the time. So for anyone who doesn't know what Canva is, and I highly encourage you to go to our website because I have a webinar actually on there about how to use Canva as an RSO. Canva there is a free version of it, and it's very robust, the free version, that does very professional quality graphic design work. You can create it yourself. They have a million templates of everything you can imagine. Really cool looking PowerPoint style presentations, social media graphics that move, literally anything you can think of. If you're not using Canva as a student organization, virtual or not, you're missing out because there's so much you can do with it. We decided as a department, even though we have some graphic designers, we're doing a lot of last minute and a lot of like social media stuff that I'm just kind of creating at the time I want to use it. So asking for our graphic designers to do that is a little hard. So we went ahead and paid for a year of membership for Canva. It's $120. For us, like that's 100% worth it. I'm paying way less on programming to do programming, so the cost of a Canva membership, 100% worth it. So think about those sorts of things, about how you might want to reallocate your resources. That would be helpful to you all. Any other questions? Give you just a minute or two to add in any other questions. I think in general, the biggest piece of advice that we can give you is to be creative and also be realistic in your expectations. The virtual events are just not going to be the same. It's going to feel weird. You're going to try to, just keep moving forward and get into a groove of what you're doing. Your members will kind of get on board. They'll get used to it. They'll get after you do a couple meetings, either e-board meetings or general member meetings, they'll know what to expect. They'll understand what it feels. Hopefully they'll open up a little bit more and be a little more interactive. Those first few, your engagement will probably be low, but don't let that deter you from continuing. Just because you have low engagement, use that as a way to spur your creative thoughts about like, okay, well, we just can't get a lot of people to log on at the same time. How can I make this interactive or after the fact, or how can I give prizes away if you're doing, if you've got free swag or t-shirts or something? How can I use that to entice engagement on my social media? All of that creative thought we love to see. If you're not already following us on our social media, not only with your personal accounts, but highly encourage you to follow us with your organization accounts. We try to follow every student organization with our social media, so we know what's going on. And then that way, make sure you're following us with your with your organization account as well, because that can be really helpful as well. Any other last thoughts, Savannah? It doesn't look like we have any other questions that came in. So any other last thoughts? Okay, you can do this. Student orgs, leaders, you can do this. Like it's challenging, it's worth it. You're gonna be amazing. We love seeing all the creative things you're doing. Like for example, at Involvement Fair, I had no idea how that virtual Involvement Fair was gonna go. I had no idea if anyone was gonna log on. I had no idea if anyone was gonna engage with our posts, and we had huge numbers. And not only that, but I was really excited to see what each individual student org did with their own social media. It was some of the most creative, cool content, and I loved at the end of the day, that was a very busy day for us. At the end of the day, I kind of sat with the iPad, and I looked at what every student org had done during that day, and it was just some really, really cool content. That made us both really excited to see how creative you're going to be this semester, how you're going to kind of think outside the box, and be willing to share your ideas, borrow from other student organizations, ask them, hey, I saw you did this, can we do it too? Can we partner on events? Just be friends with our student organizations at this point. It's a really good way to move forward. Thank you all so much. Be well, stay safe. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.